May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, my strength and my Redeemer. Amen. Hannah Marie will be baptized shortly. Yeah, that's it. Preach it. So a slightly abbreviated sermon this morning. You know, when I preach, when I use quotations or refer to other people's works, I don't get bogged down in naming them all. I'll say, as one scholar says, as one commentator puts it. But sometimes when a sermon owes an enormous debt to one person, you've really got to give the citation. Otherwise, it's stealing. So I'm going to give proper citation to what I'm about to say. And when I do that, you'll understand why I don't do this all the time. So a good chunk of what I'm going to say to you, I found in a book by Tim Alberta. And in that book, Tim Alberta quoted a preacher that he knew by the name of Darrell Boozman, who used this idea. And the preacher, Darrell Boozman, took it from a book by James Case. Okay, you with me? Was that perfectly straightforward? No, it wasn't. Thank you. So it's not just me. That's why I don't give citations all the time. But I did it today because I owe those gentlemen a great debt of gratitude, and by giving the full citation, I'm not going to get an angry phone call from the bishop this week saying, "Hey, Blyth, I hear you steal sermons." James Case wrote a book back in the 80s called Finite and Infinite Games. And that's what this sermon is about. Finite and infinite games. See, she was great until I started preaching. So it's not just you that gets annoyed with my preaching. Everyone's a critic. That's all right. God would rather hear the cries of the young saints than the snores of the old saints. Finite and infinite games. A finite game is something like baseball. You've got set teams. They're the ones that play the game. We can't walk onto the field or pitch or whatever you call a baseball thing. And sorry, I'm a Brit. I don't even know how you win a baseball game. I think it's the one who scores the most baskets by the end of the second half. It's something like that. So a baseball game is a finite game. It's got a set of rules of who plays, how they play. I can't just wander over and say, "Hey, give me that bat, I'll give it a try." I can't just move third base to the pitcher's mound. There's rules. And in a finite game, not only are the players predetermined and the rules predetermined, but someone has to win and someone has to lose, because it's an American game. In Britain, we don't mind draws. In cricket, you can play for 3 days and still have a draw. Americans can't deal with that. Someone has to win and someone has to lose, and you win by beating the other people. That's a finite game. An infinite game is different. The point of an infinite game is not to win, but to grow and to deepen, and dare I say, even to mature and improve. A finite game doesn't have a set number of players, and it's no predetermined time. It could be an entire lifetime. An example of an infinite game is education. And you can tell now this is a philosophical book where game can be a game or a game. There's no winners and losers in education. You don't try to beat someone. You simply use whatever resources are available to you everywhere and anywhere and everyone, and you grow and you deepen. And Case goes a little deeper and says it's a little bit like the difference between the theatrical and the dramatic. In the theatrical, the person is forced to play the part. Hey, you want to be an actor? Good, get on the stage and do your thing. And then at the end, it's scene and the lights darken and you're done. And you're compelled, because you want to be an actor, to do the play. That's the theatrical. The dramatic, oh no. You're not an actor on a stage having to do whatever lines are given to you. In the dramatic, you are part of the drama of life. Voluntary, love-filled, never-ending. The lights never go down. So why do I tell you all this? I mean, that's the longest opening spiel I've delivered in a sermon in ages, and I haven't even got to the gospel text yet. But I'm glad you asked. I tell you all that because I think that explains why Christianity today in North America feels like a contact sport instead of a spiritual exercise. Christians have it in their heads that they are playing a finite game. There's got to be a winner and a loser, and you're in it to win, which is insanity because we believe that God has already won, don't we? God has already won through the cross and resurrection and ascension of Jesus Christ. Mark Allen Powell, the great Lutheran scholar, said, isn't that the point of the book of Revelation? The book of Revelation is long and scary and blood-filled and full of imagery, full of great beauty too. But the book of Revelation is very seldom someone's favorite book in the Bible. And Mark Allen Powell was asked, well, what's the meaning of the book of Revelation? He says, oh, that's easy. God wins. So if God wins, and if God has already won through the passion and resurrection of Jesus Christ, why is it that his followers are convinced that they're in a winner-take-all contact sport? I think it also explains what's going on in the gospel text today. 7 minutes, 15 seconds it took me to get to the gospel text today. The disciples are playing a finite game, and Jesus is playing an infinite game. The disciples are still caught up in winner takes all, except it's not baskets and runs and innings and quarters and halves. It's status. That's why they're arguing about who's going to be the greatest, because their position in their society is a finite game where if they're not gaining status, they're losing it. Where in order to be respected and be an acceptable contributing part of society, they must win and be looked upon by others as strong and persevering and ultimately victorious. If you look at the gospel text today and say they're playing a finite game, it all becomes clear and understandable, and you start to understand the shocking nature of what Jesus does. When taking that child in his arms, he reveals to everyone that he's playing an infinite game. Because that child has no status. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying the ancients didn't love their children. They did. But the child had no status because there was nothing that child could do in that society to build up status. They were just little eating machines that one day, you can relate, but one day they would accumulate status, the hope was, but as a child they couldn't. So they were really non-persons, non-entities. And Jesus scoops that child up in a moment that one scholar describes as awesome but revolutionary. Scoops up that child and says, this is how you play an infinite game. Your status counts for nothing. Your winner-take-all mentality is at odds with my good news. Because the gospel points towards not status, but servanthood and grace and love and outpouring and giving of self, all of which is contradicted by a system of status and power and influence. So, Hannah, hi Hannah Marie, hiya. I get to be one of the first people to tell you that all these people around you that love you most, they are going to be part of your drama for the rest of their lives. They're going to play their part alongside you from now until the moment they take their last breath. And people of faith get to say to you, welcome to the most awesome, infinite game you can possibly imagine. Amen.